in the midst, in the throes of war, an extended uprising in my city, in my country. In 1989, at the end of the war, a period of heightened violence and brutality. I hope you guys are not, don't worry about me shaking a little bit, just to keep my rhythm. Talking about these issues are not easy. And I repeat, I leave out large chunks, and I simplify. My arrest and my father a shield, 3 cordons and hundreds of police and soldiers in a civilian community. Shaking hands and celebrating. Now, the steel muzzles were cool against my skin. And my thoughts had disappeared and I had become numb. This might sound strange, but I was overcome by a willingness to die. My life felt ended, and I was ready to go. It seemed the fair and logical thing. I had spent 2 years previously preparing myself for it. I had had many hours of wondering what it would feel like, and I had imagined it countless of times. During my training, I had rehearsed it, and I had taught others how to rehearse it. So I thought I knew everything. But if I did, I would not be here now. And I would not want to speak about it and share and travel to speak about what no one should be submitted to. Not then in my country during that time, and not now anywhere, whether it's in Argentina or anywhere else. And I use Argentina as an example because at that time they had similar laws that were said to be pretty and accepted. So I could not conceive of the reality of arrest in the way that I thought was simple, of detention and of torture. Now, what I want to share with you here is not the physical experience of detention, the sensational stuff that make you feel as if it were happening to you on your body right now. Rather, the more spiritual and the existential experience of having your humanity systematically broken and destroyed. The texture of violence, the many colors it has when the less tangible things become real, in the life that it has after recovery of broken skin, in the life that it has after the recovery of broken skin. For when in the context of violence and torture does not allow for bullet holes through the back of the head, then it is still created to kill the living, the detained, human beings alive behind bars. It is in the end these extreme forms of human interaction that is intended to totally shatter the core being and all that makes living meaningful and all that makes life worthful and all that makes life worthwhile. To create the place where innocence does not exist, where innocence cannot exist. It is in this place, in this moment, extended indefinitely, where you long for death and it doesn't come. where you, along with your torturer, is lost to humanity, almost as one being. When the war extends itself to your body and lives in your mind and plays out like a pantomime without any actors. So their task was to turn me against myself and against my own and against all that I believed. The very reason for the existence. Given up in the moment that they had to kill. So it would be done as a metaphor through killing my belief in the people, my family, my country, and my life. By making me an accessory to death, they destroyed not one life, but two at once. They succeeded in turning me against me, but failed in turning me against my own. Now, when I say this, it's not to rescue me. For when we use the word betrayal glibly, it is an impossible sentence. The betrayal of a soldier can be an impossible sentence. It is in this technology of warfare that ordinary people easily take for granted the intensity of it. It is in this prison that exists where hell comes about. When death is just a pawn in the games that we humans play with each other, in moments when, in fact, the fact that we are human no longer matters. It is when we are able to destroy and justify the destruction of another person by the mere looking. And consequently, the blow that follows. Now, the reason I talk about this is because I want to talk about it. And because I have to talk about it. It is because the choosing of lives of the innocent and the possibility of the death of a comrade, it is here when choice has a fracture. When in each direction there is an answer and it's not the one you want. When the mere saying of between a rock and a hard place no longer exists. When putting it into words makes no sense. It is here when I wish to switch off the television and to pray that all I have to do is wake up sweating. And it was just a dream. But once you've lived through this, it is when you hope for a day when there are no movies that oversimplify the meaning of torture. That makes simple war and peace, that expresses itself only in the binary of either or. But I mean, I survived and came through prison and was released and was set up. What happened in those last days when they couldn't just kill you was to kill you by releasing you into your own communities to be killed. So my hell continued after being released from prison as a living nightmare played in slow motion. And you see it done in the movies. You know that moment when things draw out slowly. Slowly, and then become an eternity. When life becomes a nightmare and you can't sleep. This is when the idea of death becomes internalized, and your battle every day externally is not to give in to it. Then, just then, in that moment. It's when recovery becomes your own search for humanity. You're looking. So for me to stand here as part of my responsibility for being alive, I've had to recover. I've had to recover me, and I've had to recover others. And in my recovery, it is in my recovery that I refuse my torturer's victory over me and on my body. And I've had to clasp my hand in a tight fist. And I've had to run my knuckles metaphorically over tarred pavements and believe that the insides of me that previously housed a soul could be recovered, revitalized, like someone saved from days in the desert with little droplets over parched lips, slowly accepting life. This thing is crazy. I'm struggling. So the process of gathering the inner shards of my existence, the innocence of my humanity, I would argue, was almost as brutal as the process of losing it. Enjoying the taste of life as political victory can easily be hollow when you have seen the cost. Now, what about this commission? The commission that we all talk about and study and read and write about. Tonight, I do not want to look at it politically, in a macro sense. Just personally in the micro, because my testimony at this commission was the first step to recovery. Breaking the silence, my silence publicly shaped the very way in which I was to emerge from this lonely place called hell. It freed me from the now defunct, defeated apartheid security apparatus and forces. Giving into my tears, allowing myself to feel, to share my pain, was the political act of waking up from this sweating. One of the possibilities that the Human Rights Violation Committee of this commission offered me, and I took out of desperation. The complexity of the Archbishop's tears, and some of you have met him. Put those things. Yeah. The complexity of the Archbishop's tears and the smoke filtering into my lungs from the then Deputy President, now our President's pipe, cannot be put into words. Straight, simple, factual. For me, they both became mixed into a balm that I used to begin my own recovery. After which I've had over several years to rip from inside violently the blonde hair, and the blue eyes, of those who shared my detention, that became seared in the very core of me. Exercising the torturer and the prison walls has been the key to me seeing and accepting that human beauty continues to exist despite horror, in spite of horror. And that in the most darkest of moments, other things exist also. All we have to do is to look and look hard and find it and grab and grasp and pull sometimes. So it was in this place where detention came to settle, in the place where I should have had a soul. It's when the technology of detention and violence makes you the torturer and turns you into the prison. It's in this very place of existence that makes torture and detention a refrain that I don't like seeing or hearing. And when I speak about it, I speak about it to say that it shouldn't be. Not then, not now, and not tomorrow, and not with any nice words that creates laws that says it's okay. Because it left me at war with myself. It left me with having the security police winning daily victories over me as I battered myself. Making peace and accepting that the war was over wasn't easy, still isn't. But I want to argue here that it was the beginning of me coming to terms with the fact that I survived while so many of my comrades did not. We're not so fortunate. It is here that the responsibility to the dead eventually turned me back onto a path that made me responsible to those alive, living. Accepting my comrades dead, and that there was nothing that I can do to bring them back, or anything that we can do to change this fact. Letting go of this is the hardest thing. Allowing their dreams to come back into my life and to possess the very core of me was pretty scary. Because it meant that it wasn't over. And that I couldn't go and just disappear into nowhere land. That I had to find the victory and immerse myself in its scalding waters. It is in these waters that burnt me that I learned that we grow new skin. Small victories every day consolidate survival and allow us slowly all the time to reconstruct humanity. One at a time, sometimes when it's hard, but more at a time when it's not so hard. When the moment allows us to feel strong and it's easy to take a stand. So the struggle for peace and dignity as an African as you said, as a man slightly less than white, is not over for me. Coming to accept the fact that the world is actually not such a good place. Coming to accept the fact that the world is not such a good place was hard at first. In fact, I didn't want to accept it. I wanted the world to be a good place, where everything was fine. Can you stop that photographs now, please? Thank you. I mean, that's enough. I haven't moved. Okay. Thanks. Thinking that the world is a good place, is what we all want. I want it. But coming to accept that it's not such a good place for everyone helps me to wake up every morning smiling. It gives me the reason to live, it gives me meaning, and it gives me meaning in a place where sometimes meaning is meaningless. To breathe freedom. To breathe freedom cannot be underrated. And I feel strongly that more people should breathe it. Taste it. Should immerse themselves in the hot waters that burn your skin of this thing that's called freedom. The breathing of freedom every day is special. The organization that I run in Cape Town is one such example, where its breath filters through into walls and onto office desks and into vehicles that run on petrol. I mean, its mere existence is worth celebrating in a context where it's easy to cry. In my city, as you have said, and a lot of you know, that there are people less fortunate than I. Where apartheid as a legacy has not ended, where we are still divided by race in an extreme economy, where the disparity of wealth between rich and poor, for anybody who is prepared to open his or her heart, who is prepared to look, and who is prepared